Okay, today is Wednesday, August 18th. It is 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Attest to publication.
I saw it.
Thank you, Joni. Roll call, all present. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. District mission value, vision and values. Jack?
Mission, Bangor Pride, a small school building big futures. Vision, an innovative small school creating excellence through personalized learning and relationships for all. Values, student-centered, small class sizes, continuous improvement, professionalism, opportunities for all, safety, foster community, and sustainability.
Thank you, Jack. Public comments. Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of the minutes from July 21st, 2021.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by Joni, seconded by Lori to approve the minutes from July 21st, 2021 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Financial documents.
Yeah, those were sent out, or part of the board docs. I know there was a couple of questions that we responded to the whole board on those. Is there any other questions on those docs? Otherwise, we'd look for a motion to approve the financials as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Lori to approve the financial documents as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Old business. We do not have any tonight. Committee reports, policy committee. Joni, I believe you're chairperson.
Yeah, I was thinking we did that already, but I guess time has flown. We went through, Jack, Lisa, and I met with David. We went through quite a substantial list of policies. It's like anything else. We weeded out the ones that are required by state. We looked at the ones that are, usually if Neola gives them to us, there's a strong recommendation to make the update. They don't just give them to us to read for our leisure. So we weeded those out. We have a couple that are new to our policies and that we will need to have a first reading of. I don't know if you have any specific questions or if the other two have anything to add.
I would just add that there are two in there that were not Neola. One would be the update to the health nutrition policy that Emily had presented to us, and we went through that as well. The other one was simply a clerical change of we used to use the online pay system of RevTrack, and we replaced that with JMC, which is what we use now. So those are the only two things that weren't Neola driven, but just things that needed to be tweaked.
Thank you, Joni. All right, on to food service report. Emily. You'll need to do the mic so people on YouTube can hear. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so due to COVID, the USDA has decided to extend the waivers. So breakfast and lunch will be universally free for all students, regardless of their free and reduced status. We do have the opportunity to select that waiver. It's called the seamless summer option that we would be selecting, and we'd be reimbursed at a higher reimbursement rate that is usually used for the summer food service program. So either we can do that or we can choose to operate under the National School Lunch Program. I'm choosing to adopt the seamless summer option waiver and offer the universal free meals to all students regardless of their free and reduced status. Students will, however, continue to be charged as usual for other purchases such as their morning milk, extra entrees, a la carte items, different things like that. So very similar to last school year in terms of what's charged and what's not.
I would just add to that portion, approval of that seamless summer option is in the consent agenda. So if there's a discussion on that, we could have that now as well.
Otherwise, I did just list what our prices were the previous year that we had approved for both breakfast and lunch, for full pay and reduced pay, as well as the adult prices. Just to kind of give us a reference of where we're at. Per discussion with the DPI, it sounds like we can't elect to raise our prices if we're choosing to do the seamless summer option, but we can choose to raise our prices even more to catch up if we do indeed go back to the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program in the following school year. Another thing that we had to decide this year due to the waivers is our site designation. So we can basically choose to operate as an open site as we did last school year, where we basically can provide to anyone 18 years of age or younger in the community. We can do restricted open, where basically we just restrict for different reasons, most likely safety reasons. So maybe only siblings of students that are enrolled in the district, or the virtual academy students, or different things like that. Or there's the option of closed enrolled, only the students that are actually attending in-person instruction in the building. So just based on conversations and who did participate in the delivered meals last year, and staffing availability and different things like that, expected limited participation, it's been decided that we think it's our best interest to operate as closed enrolled for the start of the school year. That it is pretty flexible to adjust that if we do start finding that we have families that are reaching out having needs, it can be adjusted. But closed enrolled is where we're looking at right now. In addition to that, we have been approached by St. Paul's Lutheran School in town. They are interested in continuing to receive meals from Bangor School District this upcoming school year. We're kind of working out the details of that, how that's going to work. But what we're thinking is we would set them up as, there's two different types of options they could do. They could do a vended meal agreement where we would just charge them a flat rate per meal, and then they would just pay for that out of their own funds. Or we could do a joint agreement where they actually sign up with the DPI as well as a school food authority, and they can submit and claim their meals and get the reimbursement from the USDA as well. Regardless, whatever they decide, if they decide to go with us, we would just charge a flat rate at per meal. And since they are an elementary school, we were kind of looking at the prices, and we were just going to bump up our elementary prices by 5 cents of what we had approved last year. So we were looking at charging $1.60 for breakfast and $2.90 for lunch. And we are trying to encourage them to provide the delivery piece of it. But if not, we might determine a delivery fee per day based on that agreement. Morning milk, there's really no change. We're going to continue to operate under the Wisconsin School Day Milk Program for pre-K through 5th grade, with the quarterly fee at the $6.30 per quarter for pre-K, since they're not here every day, and the $15.75 per quarter through K through 5. Just one thing to note about free and reduced applications. There may be some questions about if these need to be completed, just because universal free meals for everyone, what is the difference? A couple things that it could affect are the pandemic food share benefits that have been known as the pandemic or the PEBT cards. Basically, they have awarded debit cards that families can use on groceries to families that did qualify for free or reduced meals. Last I have heard, they haven't established the exact criteria they're going to be using this year to issue those. But they are in a better spot to receive those benefits if they are qualifying for free or reduced benefits. And of course, educational funding is based on the free and reduced status. So although it may not directly benefit them, it will benefit the school in general and benefit them that way as well. Otherwise, I just wanted to touch quickly on the food service protocols with COVID. We're definitely going to continue to frequently clean high touch surface areas in the kitchen and cafeteria areas. Hand washing will continue to be promoted as it always has been. Definitely between switching tasks, going to the bathroom, handling garbage, just as frequently as possible to ensure hand hygiene there. But then due to the low risk of transmission from surfaces, Bangor will continue to offer self-service areas, including the garden bar in both schools. And students will continue to be asked to wash their hands prior to going through the lunch line with hand sanitizer provided. And then I have listed the current CDC guidelines as a reference as well on the document. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. When we make the designation of what we want, either an open site, the closed enrolled and all that, that is for the full year then? It doesn't change at semester, or is there a possibility to change it at semester? How fluid is that designation?
Pretty much my understanding with the DPI is as long as we change the agreement that we set, it can pretty much be fluid throughout the school year. It doesn't even have to be at semester.
Okay. Then
And
the,
I don't know that it necessarily needs to be board approved. They didn't
Sure.
specify that. I just wanted to make sure to share that information with you today.
And then the other thing with St. Paul's and working with them, being we designate our site as a closed is what we're planning on doing. How does that doesn't play into or change that?
Yeah, I asked the DPI that question too, and they said that that shouldn't affect
Good.
the site designation.
I think the biggest part of that is they are still not coming into our building. We're just vending. We're just preparing the food here and sending it out.
Any other questions for Emily? Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Emily. You can hand that right to Tammy because she's gonna be up here shortly. We'll go to the first action item, which is the COVID response plan and update. When we sat here in July, I thought we were sitting in a really, really good place. A lot has changed in a month. So there have been some adaptations made to the original plan, although for the most part, the plan stays intact. I think it's important, in seeing what has changed in a month, the plan has been relabeled as an adaptive plan. So we will continue to look at this constantly, and I see this being on the agenda for every meeting. And, hopefully we don't get to that point, but I could see us coming to a special meeting to address concerns that happen at that time. So that said, Tammy has prepared kind of the current conditions as of today, the data that came out, and just going to share with us the recommendations.
On 8/10/21, Lacrosse County reported the case rate among unvaccinated and partially vaccinated individuals was 204 per 100,000. And the weekly case rate among vaccinated individuals was 57.1 per 100,000 population per week. Unvaccinated individuals have a higher incidence of infection than vaccinated individuals. However, there is a rising case rate among vaccinated individuals as well. The dominant COVID strain right now is the Delta variant. And this variant is 2 times more contagious than the original strain of COVID. For example, one infected person with the original strain would often lead to or average 2 new infections, and the Delta variant is leading to 5 to 6 new infections. I did read some literature today, and they're thinking maybe even up to 8 new infections with one infection. There's been increasing infections among school-aged kiddos with more severe illness. I know one of our school districts has a student in the ICU right now with complications from COVID. And Gunderson has reopened their COVID unit. LaCrosse County ranks the COVID activity level as low, moderate, substantial, or high. And right now, LaCrosse County is considered to be in high transmission rate. According to CDC and DHS guidance, whenever our community's 7-day case rate indicates that we have substantial or high level of community transmission, all people, even vaccinated individuals, should wear a mask in indoor settings. Due to circulating and highly contagious Delta variant, CDC recommends universal indoor masking by all students ages 2 and older, staff, teachers, and visitors to K through 12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. We continue to strongly encourage eligible people to get a COVID-19 vaccine. There are many participating partners in our community. The La Crosse County Health Department offers free vaccines every week. Their website has more information, and if anybody needs help or further information, I can provide that as well. Vaccines play a crucial role in limiting spread of virus and minimizing disease, severe disease, which may lead to hospitalization and death. Vaccines are highly effective, but they are not perfect. There will be and have been breakthrough infections among vaccinated people. Vaccinated people tend to have milder illness, however, and recover more quickly. Low vaccination coverage in many communities is driving the current rapid and large surge in cases associated with the Delta variant. This increases the chance that even more concerning variants will emerge.
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions for Tammy? I think it's important that we hear and understand that that's the situation that we're up against and understand that things are changing. In the plan, the adaptive plan presented tonight, we add in the graphic of the layered strategies for preventing the spread. And we acknowledge that there are lots of things that go into preventing the spread of COVID-19, masking being one of them, vaccines being one of them, social distancing being one of them. There are lots of factors that all play into that. I think we also acknowledge that there is a very polarized community around the decisions with masking, vaccines, and all of those types of things. And I feel it's important that we were respectful to people's personal beliefs. So this recommendation that is in front of you follows the recommendations to promote, to strongly recommend and encourage masking in all environments, especially indoor environments, but stop short of the district mandating that it has to be masked at all times. The bus mandate does stay in place because that's a federal order, and so we will require the buses anytime students are on the buses that they're wearing masks on the buses. We still feel face-to-face instruction is by far the most powerful, and it is our priority to operate as safely as possible to continue face-to-face instruction. We will be adding the element of testing, and we have met with our testing company, Accelerated Testing, to kind of understand what that is. We'll have access to antigen testing and PCR testing at the school. We plan to use a model that is for diagnostic testing, which means if somebody is a close contact or experiencing symptoms while here at school, we could perform a test and notify parents within 24 hours with the long test or immediately with the short test. What the results of that is, that will inform our decision on length of quarantine and all of those types of things. I think it will help us immensely when we're looking at staffing to be able to provide that testing upfront and in the schools. The important part to note is that is completely a personal choice, and it is a choice by family for their children. So we will be sending out a permission slip that would basically say, yes, you can test our child when those situations occur. We'll notify parents immediately of those situations. If parents choose not to do that, we won't push it. That's just a service that we will have available to us. It's going to allow us to have that valuable information quicker so that we can make the right decisions for the safety of all of our staff and students. There are flexibility in models of the testing once we have signed on or agreed with accelerated testing to do this testing, which means if we got to a point of say a homecoming dance or something like that, and we wanted to event test and say that everybody had to be tested the day of or the day before the event, we could do that. I'm not saying that that's our recommendation right now, but depending on what things are at that point in time, that would be an option. We could also do offer like outbreak testing, where we could offer it to an entire grade level or an entire building, just to make sure that anybody that has access to that or has maybe had exposure is getting tested, and we're making sure that that doesn't spread. So we have flexibility in that model, but at this point in time, the model choice that we are going with is the diagnostic testing. Another change or adaptation to our plan, and I guess this is an important one, is the quarantining. So we had in July really hoped that we could pull back a little bit from the recommendations from the county, recommendation from the CDC, and do what made sense for Bangor. What we're seeing is in other districts that's not necessarily working. The county is coming in and making a decision on quarantining that's in line with what their recommendations would be and what the state recommendations would be. And because of that, the school district can't overstep that authority at that point in time. So having a less restrictive plan than what the county has in place, I think puts us in a poor situation. So the change in the quarantine procedures are due to that. We want to be as restrictive as what the county is saying so that we can work in partnership. There are still advantages in our language for being masked and being vaccinated. So the quarantine times can be affected and made shorter if those things are in place. So again, we will encourage and promote and strongly recommend, but we will not require, but the masking and vaccines. In addition, at the last meeting, I had talked about there are still some things we wanted to iron out, and those have been ironed out at the back of your plan, the additional accommodations and restrictions. So drinking fountains, I just feel is a no-brainer. Where kids' mouths might be on them, we're going to leave them closed off for the school year. We still have water bottle fillers, and we will encourage students to bring their own water bottles to refill. We'll also provide some cups and make sure that they have access to water throughout the day. We would like to return to field trips if possible, and if the conditions are acceptable at that point in time. We would ask that the staff plan with their administration and that COVID be a factor in that planning. If we find that it is safe and we want to go to a closed environment such as a museum where kids would be in the building with other students from potentially other districts, we reserve the right to require at that point in time masking for our students when they're in those facilities. So they would be required to ride it on the bus to get there. We would say you need to wear it while you're at that facility as well. And if children preferred not to mask, we would provide an alternative for them here at school instead of taking them on the field trip. So that's one place where I would recommend that we do require, just as we do on the buses. Visitors will again be allowed into the buildings, and we're just asking that parents come in for the things that they need, and not necessarily every single day to come in and have a conversation. And I don't know if that was a practice in the past, but I just think that's really important. Occasional visits to speak with your teacher, ask some questions, stop in the office. We welcome you to come back in, where last year I know a lot of families missed out on coming in and seeing their children's classrooms and seeing the projects that they had hanging on the wall. So we want that to happen, just preferably not on a daily basis. So is what we're looking for there. Fundraising was cut off completely last year, and we do feel that we need to do that for our organizations and restart fundraising. Again, we'll look for administrative approval on that, and we are going to highly discourage anything that would be a door-to-door sales. So we want to make sure that we're not putting our children out in a case where they could be spreading or be getting COVID. So that would be run through the administration, and we're going to discourage those types of fundraisers. Cleaning practices will be continually reviewed and updated throughout the year. We have a good handle on what that should look like from last year, and we'll build from that. Building and classroom procedures will be flexible and will be adjusted throughout the year. These guys have done an amazing job of planning for what we know right now, and they have contingency plans in place to adjust as we go if we need to. So by all means, our hope is to make school feel as normal as possible. I think it was clear to everyone last year that last year was a challenge, and not having parents in the buildings, not having kids interacting with their student or their teachers in the same way, being able to interact in groups and those types of things was a challenge for everybody. So our hope is to be able to get there, and we will continue to plan accordingly so that we can do that safely. That's the plan. I think at the end of the plan, we've put together a plan that honors some personal beliefs on both sides of a very divisive topic. I think it's incredibly important that while we will not mandate, we will highly encourage, and we will not tolerate bullying or harassment of someone for wearing a mask or for not wearing a mask. That will not be part of this. So we want to make sure that we can all demonstrate how to interact in a safe environment. Kids at the center is our focus, and we want the kids back here. We don't want to be coming back to you with a plan that puts students back out of school or in a situation where we've been in the past, and we want to learn from that and get better going forward. Questions about the proposed plan and revisions?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated to the 2021-2022 school year COVID-19 adaptive response plan as presented.
Shelley, can I just ask one question?
yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna.
It's okay.
When you talk about the testing and you say the agreement, we're making an agreement with the company for testing? Like what kind of agreement is it?
No, we have not signed like any agreement. We're just,
So the state matches us with a vendor, and they would do the training, and I'm not sure if we'd sign an agreement or not.
yeah, we have not. If there is an agreement, I would make sure I run that by the board first.
Okay.
But basically, we said we were interested. The state matched us with this vendor. This vendor has met with us one-on-one to kind of talk through what our hopes are. And then they're setting up another meeting now to work out the logistics. Once this is approved, we'll arrange for the training of our staff for that. And there are options that we can do this where the liability is completely on them, or we can sign the waiver for, what's the name of the waiver? I apologize. Apologize.
You would apply for a CLIA waiver.
A CLIO waiver where we can do all the testing internally, and there would be some real advantages to doing that for more than just the COVID testing, things like students with diabetes and testing from that standpoint. That having that in place for the district would be a positive.
Okay, so we've already talked about the liability and insurance and all of that. Is there a cost to this to
Oh,
us?
it's free.
But we will see the agreement before this, so we
If
can
there
back
is an
out at any
agreement to
time.
sign, you will absolutely see it. I'll keep you updated at the next meeting and before as we get closer to that training.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion. Before, any other questions?
I'll second.
Motion by Shelley, seconded by Joni to approve the COVID-19 Adaptive Response Plan as submitted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing that that is approved, I have no additional action for the outside groups using facilities. We will again stress the process of they need to keep track of who is in the building, and the outside groups attending the meetings would still have to have district students in them. So not just any organization coming in at this point in time yet. So I'm proposing no changes there. Any questions or any other suggested changes? All right, then I will move on to see the school safety plan update. This is an annual requirement that this plan is reviewed and approved by the board. As a former safety director, I enjoyed reading through this. It's a very good plan. I think that there may be things that we talk about throughout the year and hopefully don't have to implement, but as we practice and prepare and think throughout the year, there may be things we come back to next year, but I feel this is a very good plan. The updates to this plan were basic things like name changes for myself, and dates, and we did remove the COVID-19 section, which I think was about 17 pages. And basically what we've approved tonight and that adaptive plan will continue to be the law of the land instead of what was in that document. So I'd look for approval, or unless there's questions, I'd look for approval of the safety plan as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the safety plan that was updated. I'll second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Lisa to approve the school safety plan as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
In the same vein, the employee handbook needs to be reviewed each year and updated and then approved. So again, dates are there. We do have the log of all updates since 2012 when the employee handbook was created. When we look at the changes for this year, so there was a removal of section 2.06, which was the COVID leave, the federal leave that was in place last year until the end of the year or end of the calendar year ended January 1st. Removal again of Appendix K, which was actually the same appendix that was on the safety plan, again, referring back to the document that we've approved tonight. And then updated the district calendar and changed superintendent name. Then there was some clarification added to section 5.05, and this was clarifying how we pay out vacation time at the end of employment. This was actually a topic that had came up and Dave had discussed with Bob prior to leaving, and then came up again, and Bob said, hey, I don't think we actually got that changed. So that was right at the end of Dave's time here. So we've got that in there, additional handbook and or additional language, and it's basically clarifying, like I said, the vacation pay at the end of employment, and it matches what you put in my contract. So so look for approval of the handbook unless there's questions.
Any questions?
I'll move to approve the updated employee handbook.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Tina to approve the updated employee handbook as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, the Neola policy 29.2 that Joni had mentioned that we reviewed had a number of revisions. And so we're looking for approval of those revisions as listed in that document, 29.2 revisions.
And again, we can approve these as a whole,
We
correct?
can approve all of the revisions as a whole, and then the next item is the new policies that we'll approve the first reading of.
I will move to approve the policy revisions in 29.2 as we reviewed.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley to approve the Neola 29.2 policy revisions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And this is the first reading of new policies. I think just kind of a fun one, because it's come up multiple places around the state. We will now have a policy on drone usage on campus because that has become an issue. WIAA has actually come out with another, a pretty extensive policy on that with school districts potentially using those for practices and such to take a look at other teams. So it's a real issue. So that is one of the new policies. So look for approval of the first reading of those.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the 29.2 new policies.
Second.
Motion being made by Lori, seconded by Joni to approve the first reading of Neola 29.2 new policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
So just when we thought we were getting to the end of construction, the 10th Street is wrapping up over there, looking amazing. They've got the sidewalk and curb cuts in so that we can get from the ball diamonds over to, and that subdivision over to the school. But we're missing a section of sidewalk across the parking lot area there. So the proposed action would be to put that sidewalk in. We would contract with the same vendor who had done all of the rest of the concrete across the front of the school. There are a couple of pictures that I had shared there. By doing it in this manner, we're reconfiguring the end of the peninsula, as some have called it, the cement sidewalk area that's gone out. And that will allow us to use a section of the existing blacktop and probably save us about 200 feet of new concrete by just painting the end of the blacktop as walkway. So that will be a savings to us ultimately, but some extra money to reconfigure the end of that cement slab or the cement island. So the advantage of doing this now is, one, the area is already torn up, and two, the we'll be all finished with this. We think we can have at least the sidewalk portion in before school starts, which would be great. And they may be working on that reconfiguration the first few days of school, but we feel like we can work around that in that little corner there. So in addition to this, there was the question brought up by the committee that I had just sent a message to, making sure that this was okay. The Building and Grounds Committee, there was discussion in the past that there is a right of way there owned by the county, and it was owned by the county. It is now property of the village. I have met with the village and talked through that. They're in 100% full support of us putting that sidewalk across there and making that connection.
So we don't have to, I mean, we can move right into this and not get new bids because we already used Market and Johnson and they've already performed all of this other work. Correct? I mean, we can just continue this sidewalk project.
That was my understanding, but if the Building and Grounds Committee has a different understanding, that was my understanding, that we would use them to continue it in the phases.
I guess, yeah, that was a question I had is, yeah, did this get rebid out? But it just was Markin and Johnson that,
Yeah, it just went to Market and Johnson as they had just completed the other work with us. If you'd rather we bid it out, it's just gonna affect the
I
timeline
tr-
and we won't have it before.
I
school starts.
understand it affects the timeline, but I
Yep.
truly believe it should be bid out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
But isn't it an add-on to what we were doing? Or you think it changes the,
We didn't know if it was gonna be done this year or not.
Correct.
so the additional question that I had just looking at this that I didn't really think about before is it's gonna be more of a floating slab then without a curb and gutter? Do we have to have curb and gutter or can we have just a sidewalk farther off? Are there requirements that way?
It will be just a floating, there won't be curb and gutter.
Right.
There are, no, talking to the village, they felt very good. I
With
talked
this
through the
proposal,
plan
they were
with
fine
them.
with that. Okay.
Yeah. I have no issue going back, taking it to bids, bringing it to you next month, and hopefully we can get somebody to do it this fall while we're in session. No, none whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about the sidewalks, we did not know if that would get done or not, because we didn't know from the village perspective if they would be done with their stuff. So I think at this point, I'd agree with Shelley that we should probably bid it out, just to make sure.
I'll be back next month.
This is a weird question off of that. When we did this, we did it early enough so it went on, the expense came off last year's. Will that make a difference if this were to be added on to that?
We can't do anything on last year's.
So they wouldn't add it to that total bill. It would be totally separate
It would be totally separate.
because
And
we've
it's,
already,
it's date completed, not date contracted.
so that's done though. Like
Yep.
everything they've already done is done.
Correct,
Yeah,
So we would just
exactly.
be starting an actually totally new project.
correct.
Yeah.
Then we'll bid. Thank you. I
That's
appreciate that.
correct.
Yep, thank you.
And it is probably a good practice to get 3 bids.
Absolutely. Thank you. Last action item there would be, we had talked last time about doing a board retreat on September 22nd. There was a conflict, a couple conflicts with that came up. Everybody that I had talked to remembered that both were an option, but we were just going to go with the 22nd. The 29th is by far a better option, and I can nail that down if everybody is okay with that. So I just look for a motion to move that from the 22nd to the 29th.
Same time, David.
Yeah, 5:30. We'll begin with dinner.
I'll make a motion to I'll make a motion to move the board retreat from September 22nd to September 29th at 5:30.
Second.
Motion by Shelley, seconded by Lori to move the board retreat from September 22nd to September 29th, Wednesday at 5:30 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Yeah, do we have a
We have a
location?
location.
I don't have it yet. I will get it to you. Our hope is to go off site. So now that I have the date locked in, I'll get it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the board president's agenda. I do not have any correspondence. CISA 4 report. We met on Wednesday, August 14th. We approved some CISA 4 resignations. We approved some personnel contracts. We summarized all of the purchase services from all the school districts within CISA 4. I think that was it. If you have any questions, let me know. We have a new logo that some people developed. We did some upkeep on the outside, the plants and kind of a sitting area. With COVID, they wanted to open up an area outside that people could sit and have, small group meetings. just a little friendly environment. I think that's it. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. The Wazba Regional Fall Retreat, some of us have attended before. I know we went to Whitehall once. We were at the North Side School in La Crosse. One year we went to Black River Falls. This year it is October 28th, which is a Thursday, and it's at Stony Creek. There's an education session beforehand, pre-regional meeting workshop, which starts at 4:30 to 6. It's effective community engagement at board meetings is the topic. And then the regional meeting will start with dinner at 6:30 and a regional meeting from 7:30 to 9. If you're interested, let David know. He can then pay for it. It's pretty reasonably priced, but he can pay for it all in one lump sum then through the school district. And I'm sure all of you have received this in the mail. And that's all I have. We'll start with administrative reports. Mr. Chaplin.
Thanks, Julie. The first thing I have on there is the Improving Students with Disabilities. The testing, everyone's favorite thing, is out to district staff, but it's still embargoed so to the public, so we can't share that yet. But Mike and Rick and I and David will be looking at that, and I'll be working with the special ed staff on, again, continuing to try to improve our students with disabilities, getting them towards proficiency in reading and math, especially. The preschool and IDEA grant allocations did finally come out. Those were the last of the federal grants to get allocated. If you look on your sheet, there is a significant increase to those. Part of that's because of COVID funding. It's separate than like the district ESSER funding. So the federal government increased that. So our IDEA budget is up a little over $33,500 from 2021 to 21-22, which is about 23, almost 24% increase. And then the preschool grant is up $3,500, which is 128% increase on that to $3,500. What we're doing, because the district pays the bulk of the amount of special education funding, probably that increase will probably go to relieve some of the district funding for that. So it's not like we're getting a lot more money to free up stuff. We're just changing how we're going to pay for things. Any questions on the budget increases? And then the last thing I have is the Cardinal Hall of Distinction. Again, we're taking nominations for that. Ended in July, and we're going to try to put that with conjunction with homecoming. And I believe we set October 1st for homecoming. Correct there, Mr. Mullenberg?
Correct.
So Friday, October 1st will be homecoming. So we'll be trying to get the committee together to look at who we would like to induct this year. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Chaplin?
I'll go, he talked a little bit about the data, and Jack, you'd asked at the last board meeting about data. We did meet with the PLC teams. We will bring, the administration team will bring some of the district level data that we can share that's open to the September meeting. And more importantly than that, we will show in October how the PLC goals are tied to that data. So just a kind of a follow-up on Josh's part there.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Julie. Just a couple informative pieces. Summer school is wrapped up. I know you've heard a lot of this before already, and they did a nice article in the Monroe County Herald on it. but roughly 170 students attended. And then the switch this year was cohorting. We did a lot of things, keep kids in their own groups. Everybody got a math and literacy experience, and then we rotated through an enrichment activity, mostly physical activity, kind of getting up and running around, that kind of stuff. Went really well. I'd like to thank the staff, everybody that came on board and taught this year. And from talking with parents, they seem to appreciate the difference this year from last year being completely virtual. And the kids had a good time. After school care. So this process started in June, reaching out to the YMCA to see what was available for their care. They've done that with us in the past. And their stance on it initially was they weren't going to participate. They have a hard time keeping staffing in place for Bangor. That's a turnover position for them. They have a hard time replacing it. They don't have staffing to do what they already are doing. A couple of things that they mentioned in that conversation was typically the numbers started off decent in September and then dwindled as the year went on. And therefore they had 2 staff hired for that position, and it just became less and less financially I guess, stable for them. So we talked about it, trying to problem solve that. I did talk to one of our paras who was willing to or is willing to take over that position if hired by the Y. And it was at that point that they just said, no, we're not going to do it. So then I moved on to the Boys and Girls Club as another option. Certainly we liked the Y Care option first, because that was in-house. It was on our property. And then the Boys and Girls Club it took a little bit of back and forth, just vacations and things were in play. And director over there had to meet with their executive team to discuss this. And that process, early August, I found that they were not at this time willing to accept a van of Bangor students at their facility in West Salem. And but did not be because of COVID, really. It was just they wanted to get their head wrapped around what they had with the current students they had. They didn't say no, they didn't say yes, they just said not right now. So that's where it sits at this time. Any questions for me on that one particularly? The registration update, actually it says on here 30 and 12, those numbers are actually just new students to the elementary school, 34 as of today. And I believe it's 8 that actually headed, moved out of our school. You can see that most of these new students enrolling are purchasing new homes or homes. I think that's making me a little nervous with the class space and all that kind of stuff. So hold on for the ride. I know I was wondering myself when these subdivisions were going to affect our student population, and I think it was the summer of 2021. So the Stuff the Bus, as always, thank you to the Lions Club, and then in partnership with the Merrymakers. Merrymakers and the Lions donating not only a bunch of school supplies, which we have displayed in our conference room, and some parents have benefited over the last 2 nights of registration, coming in and picking up some odds and end things that maybe they weren't able to find or just needed along the way. So I think that's a great event. I want to thank the public that donated. I just think it's so generous. The boxes of things you get, that at least physically appears like it came from one family, because it's packaged all together in one thing. It's really a nice donation, along with a substantial money donation through the Merrymakers and Lions as well. And we'll use that money to offset some of bigger items possibly at maybe a grade level. We'll talk through that. We have a year to spend it kind of thing, but we'll look at what we can maybe take off of our list for at least a year or something and use some of that funds to cover that cost for that grade level or maybe several grade levels. So we'll see how we use that. I'm excited about that opportunity. And just a quick update on registration. I know it's not on the packet, but we had registration last 2 days. When I walked over here, we were at 244 pictures taken. And if you remember, we got a new picture company. We went away from Life Touch and went with Cahill Photography. And I want to thank them for their efforts, not only communicating with us, not only their efforts for today, but just how they worked with the parents and the kids. They're really true professionals. I can only speak of my building, but what I was witnessing, but Cheyenne with Cahill Photography, just a real professional. And so far, parents' feedback was super positive. The system is updated kind of from what was in the past. So I want to thank them.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you. Mr. Mullenberg.
Thank you, Julie. Update on FACE, the candidate that we did have hired then, and David will be talking about that eventually changed their mind. So as you know, last month I've been in contact with the department chairs of Stevens Point and Stout about their candidates. There's 11 student teachers this fall. Since then, I've been in contact with an instructor that I know in the program as well, who put me into contact with a current student who has 2 semesters in. I asked her if she would come down and meet. She said, I don't think I'm ready, but we met. I took her on a tour. We discussed the position and everything, and she thought it over for a night, and then she stuck with that. She's never done any lesson plans or anything like that, and just didn't feel comfortable even exploring any other options there. So then that contact I had also reached out to, ended up being 3 different retired FACE teachers, and none of them expressed any interest at all. So we were at a standstill with that. No applicants on weekend or from our social media posts either. And I went on weekend yesterday in our CISA 4, there are still 69 teaching openings in our region as of yesterday, K-12. So we're not the only ones kind of in that boat. And I know Mr. Brockup had met with somebody yesterday that said the same thing.
So, Mr. Mullenberg, just to clarify, 69 openings in the CISA 4.
Correct, teaching overall. New students, like Mike was talking about, we currently have 26 new students in grades 6 through 12. And we did receive open records requests for 4 students going out. We are looking at 612 having about 360 students in this building this year, roughly. And last year we were about 330. So 330, 332. So it's definitely an increase. The highest the high school has been since I've been here was 231 in 2009. This year we're looking at around 218. The middle school dropped just a little bit from last year being 160 down to right around 150, 145 to 150. And we did have a few other people show up today as well. I'll get a few more that we weren't expecting. So that's good news.
Did you say 360 for K-12? Is that the number? you said?
612, about
Okay.
360 we'll have in this building alone.
I asked both Mike and Rick to share that information on the new students, because while we approve the open enrollment requests each month, the open enrollment requests are an application. They do not necessarily mean that that number is the number that's going in and out. This number is the actual number of new packets that we have that we're adding, and new files that are adding there, and the number of records who have been requested out that are actually leaving the district. So sometimes those open enrollment requests represent kids that have never been in the district. So that this is I think a really true reflection of where our enrollment stands.
Any questions for Mr. Mullenberg? Thank you. Mr. Brackup?
I got a short report because I'm talking all the other times, but as far as the report goes, we had the conversation that with this site being set up for board meetings the way that it is with all the electronics, we'll continue to meet here. But I think it would be important, especially after a year's absence from the building, to allow you guys a tour and encourage a tour of the two buildings. So I will post accordingly. It will be optional for board, but Mr. Johnson will be ready at 6 o'clock before the September meeting to give a tour of the elementary school and answer any questions. You guys can see that all set up with all the great work that his teachers are doing in that building prior to our meeting at 6:30. And then in the October meeting, we will be doing the same at this building at 6 o'clock. So I'll post it so it's optional, but just in case we have more than 4 walking around, it'll be listed that way. Other than that, when I look at celebrations, it is just so exciting to see our staff back and working with kids in our sports, our teams working together, planning for PLCs, planning for their literacy units. There has just been so much work going on during the last 2 months that I've been watching and just in awe of the professionalism of our staff. So I just want to give a shout out to them for the work that they're putting in to be ready for our kids when school starts. That's all I've got for my report. Any questions for me?
You can keep on going.
All right, I'll keep going with the rescind the face contract. So this was a conversation I had with Bob, just a clerical type thing here. We had approved the contract, but we had not had the person sign a contract before she decided not to take the face position. So just to cover ourselves, we need to make sure that we rescind the contract offer and that we can move forward with that.
I'll make a motion to rescind the 1-year contract offer for the family and consumer education teacher that was approved at the July board meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Joni to rescind the family and consumer ed contract. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
We do have a resignation for the purpose of retirement of Christy Elliott, the cook at the middle school, high school. It'll be effective September 15th, so she will be starting the year for us, which is helpful right now because we are still down one person beyond that. So we will be looking to fill this. I just wanted to say thank you to Christy for her 20 years of service to the district and wish her best in her retirement.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Christy Elliott.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Lisa to approve the resignation of food service employee Christy Elliott. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
The motion to approve the resignation of elementary custodian Matthias Ellison, effective Friday, August 20th. So this Friday. Again, we thank Matthew for his 2 years of service to the district and wish him well in his future endeavors.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lori to approve the resignation of custodial staff Matthias Elson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, and then the employment of food service cook. This would be Stephanie Hesselberg that would be starting at the elementary school. In addition to, this would be a four hour a day position. Emily, who was here, led this interview process. We had about 4 applicants for that process, and all of them were interviewed. And Stephanie was the top choice of the team for this elementary position through that process. When we offered this position, we also encouraged her to go to a day of food service training where she was able to get some training and then take a proficiency test at the end of the day, and she passed that test. So we appreciate her already showing that commitment to the district and doing so. So motion to approve the elementary cook.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Stephanie Hesselberg as elementary cook.
Second.
I'm sorry, motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni to improve the employment, food service personnel of Stephanie Hesselberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, and then I believe it was at the May meeting, you approved a contract for Andrea Alvine to be a 0.6 special education / SLP interim effective for the entire school year. Part of that understanding is that we would provide her student teaching type experience during second semester. Our current person who will be working with her does not have the certification to continue to certify student teachers anymore. And we have worked pretty tirelessly to find someone who could supervise that. In looking at the way to get Andrea to her license, which is what we hope for her. She has found an opportunity in another district that she can guarantee that happening second semester. So she will continue to work with us first semester, and we will be posting this position in this form and still looking for a full-time speech teacher. The person that we have in that speech position, it would be willing to step away if we could find that full-time person at any time. And we will plan accordingly if we don't have anybody else during second semester. But the motion would be to approve Andrea's resignation as of December 22nd, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Andrea Elvin as a 0.6 special education as of December 22nd, 2021.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley to accept the resignation of special ed SLP intern Andrea Alvine on December 22nd, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Just a informational piece, there are 43 SLP openings in the state and 5 in our CISA as of 30 seconds ago.
Thank you for that wonderful news, Josh. It is definitely a ongoing challenge. So we'll be back with more information on that throughout the year. So the next item I have listed as responsive staffing adjustment, mainly because I feel like this needs to be a package deal, and you need to understand what we're doing here. So because we do not have a family and consumer education teacher, a viable candidate for that position, we are faced with a situation where we need to remove the classes at least from first semester. So there will be no family and consumer education classes offered during first semester as we stand right now. As Rick had alluded to, we will continue to push and see what we can get for second semester, and we really make decisions up into December, if I remember correctly, that we can offer those classes during second semester. In the meantime, we've got some holes in schedules because of those classes. Some of them at the high school especially can be adjusted and kids move to other sections and other classes. At the middle school, that becomes more challenging. So this proposal would take our 0.65 elementary art teacher and make her full-time so that she would be able to teach all of the art at the elementary school. Right now, our middle school, high school art teacher goes to the elementary school every day every day and teaches a couple of sections over there. By him being able to stay at the middle school, high school, he would be able to offer an 8th grade art to fill the spot where family and consumer education was. And this would be great for the art program to be able to have a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade offering at that grade level. We have chatted with both of these, talked with both of these employees. They both feel good. They both understand that this is a 1-year change and that we will reevaluate the staffing when we come to you with staffing proposals in April. So there is no guarantee that this will continue beyond this year, but it would be for the entire school year. With this being for the entire school year, we do feel that even if we are able to find the family and consumer education teacher for 2nd semester, that financially we will be able to accommodate both programs. So that's an important piece of this. And then again, if we have that family and consumer education teacher next year, then we or the second part of this year, our staffing proposal may be different again in April. So responsive to the challenges that we're faced with right now, and fairly cost neutral to what we had planned for the year. Questions about that? Otherwise, I'd look for approval, a motion to approve the staffing adjustments as presented.
I will move to approve the responsive staffing adjustment by adding to the changing the elementary art position to full-time from the current status of 0.65.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Tina to approve the responsive staffing adjustment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I think the last year or the last 2 years through COVID, there has been an entirely new emphasis on mental health of students, mental health of adults. We've looked at it in a completely different way. That said, we have taken actions through ESSER and through budgeting to increase our mental health support for our students. What I'm presenting to you here is an incredibly cost-effective way to provide some of that mental health support for our staff. So this is not just COVID related, but absolutely responsive to the challenges that that teachers and all of our staff have gone through in the last couple of years. So this program, the employee assessment program, would come at a cost of about $3,000 to the district. And if there is an event in someone's life that they feel like they need to talk through with a mental health provider, they would get 8 sessions per family member on that event. So talking through that. So all the family would be covered under this. And some of these are just phone consultations or video conversation or confrontation. Some of them are actually in person. So it depends on the situation. It's just a great program and a great way to support our staff. So it is per event. So if there was a different event that happened during the year, staff could go back for another 8 times related to that. I think at this cost, we would look at this as kind of a pilot this year. We can cover this through ESSER funds, absolutely supporting the mental health of our staff. And, making sure that they're ready to provide the best education that they can for kids each day. And we would use this as a kind of a pilot type program where we would see how it goes. We would promote it and see if staff, this is something that they would like. We may come back to you in the future with adding this to the benefit package. Obviously, that would be part of a much larger discussion. And we would at least know how well it will be used because we would be using it this year out of ESSER funds.
Would
Questions?
would we know how often it was used? So if we adopted
Yeah.
this year, next year, would they be able to tell us how many sessions or how many people utilize the service?
Yeah, absolutely. We would not know any of the names of the staff members that you would use it, but we would get a report of it was used by X number of staff members. They took advantage of X number of sessions. You know, from that perspective, we will have reports on its use.
So it's kind of a flat rate regardless. If nobody uses it, we still pay 3,000. If they use it and we have a lot of people using it, it's still the same cost.
Correct. Yeah, but I think if you were to look at typical costs of getting this type, you know, getting these types of sessions, $3,000 isn't going to cover very many people going. So you know, it's an insurance benefit to some extent, right? So that you don't always pay the full premium. You're paying for the program. If there's no other questions, I'd look for a motion to approve that for the 2021, 2022 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tina, seconded by Joni to approve the addition of an employee assistance program. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This next one is really a zero cost, but as you know, we work with the insurance center for a lot of our insurance, and they help go out and get us bids for all of our insurance and those types of things. One of the things that Dave did in our transition to me is set up a meeting. We met with the insurance center and talked about all of the benefits that the district employees receive at this point in time. And I asked about a benefit that I was familiar with from former districts, and they said, yeah, we can absolutely do that. So this is it's called a shop plan insurance program through Allstate. And it allows you to plan if you have a planned major medical event, so major surgery in the event of a childbirth or something like that, where you're planning ahead and thinking about this, there's an insurance benefit that you can buy. And, you know, it works very well, and it basically creates some supplemental income during that time of that insurance event. So especially, it could be used by anyone, especially young employees to the district. This would be something that we would really promote and educate them on how to use, and help them through those times where the finances are a little bit tight and they maybe don't have that emergency funds in place. So it is a great program. It costs the district nothing. It adds no, there's no deduction against the district if it's used or not used. You know, it is just a program that we would offer, and an employee that would be interested in using it is able to purchase it at this rate through the group of the district, because we do all of the other insurance plans. So it would just be, you know, I'm looking for approval to offer this as an option to our staff at no cost to the district.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded? Tina? Motion by Joni, seconded by Tina to approve the offering of the shop plan insurance program. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Consent agenda. If anyone desires any items to be removed, I'll give you a moment to read over page 14 and bottom of 13, 14, 15, and the top of 16. Okay.
I'll make a
I'll
motion
ask
to,
for consent agenda approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Shelley, seconded by Lori to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We do not have any closed session items. Is that correct?
That is
Mr.
correct.
Brockup?
That is correct.
Okay, I ask for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Joni. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.